Good morning, good morning. What's up, Clay? Good to see you guys once again. We are back. Had some interesting price action yesterday. Got a little bit messy, I would say, around, was it Asia, if I'm not mistaken? It was around here. Yeah, it was around Asia session. Got a little bit messy using the same zones of interest because I was looking at the charts and the main idea I was looking out for around Asia was really for continued sells below the 4600s, but then price ended up just breaking above, closed above, just did deeper pullbacks. And again, I was more so preparing or looking out for the further sells below the 4600s. It just kind of, again, didn't really play out until way later during London hours. As you can see, during London session, that's when we started to get the breakout below the 4600s. But price action really just slowed down before you had your final move take place hours later. So let's see, right now, that same idea is kind of playing out just from hindsight, looking at it. And I don't even want to say it's hindsight analysis because we talked about these prices, especially yesterday, right? We had the 4600s, which was this area of interest, which we traded into. We know that that continuation, the sells below 4600s made sense. And then yesterday, same thing. We got the sells below our areas of interest, which was us which was us adapting to the more seller bias because we were looking for buys above the 4620s. But again, price action ended up getting below that zone, made the sell-off to the 4600s, recovered for the session until later on after we ended our stream, the continuation below the 4600s took place, right? So I don't know, in my opinion, a little bit back and forth with the zones that we had yesterday. Because again, we were looking for buys above the 4620s, but then price sold off. So then again, as we adapted to that price action, price ended up reversing, getting back above that area of interest, rejected these highs perfectly, and then just absolutely melted from there. So it was like back and forth between the buys and the sells. Just again, kind of messy around these areas, right? It's not the cleanest move when you look at just like these two types of these two sessions that you're looking at right here, like the New York session and the Asia session, right? You can see the back and forth between the 4620s. You can see that right here as well. Breaking close above and then closes back below, then closes below, but then it closes above, right? So it's kind of like back and forth with that price action around there. But anyways, that was kind of like just to do a quick review of yesterday's price action. Understanding that review, and by us looking at a price right now, it kind of seems simple, right? Continued sells below the 4600s, down into the 4580s, more or less. But let's go ahead and do some top-down analysis. We'll reset this chart completely. And that way we can go over that. And we're going to get to almost a similar answer, I would say. But anyways, let's do some top-down analysis, guys. So looking at gold on this daily time frame, we see that overall still pretty bullish because of the fact that we have highs, lows, highs, lows, highs. We're now creating lows. So we're really in the phase right now of market structure on this daily time frame that price action is doing pullbacks, right? I'm not going to say that price should bounce and should continue to push towards the upside. It would be ideal for us to get some sort of exhaustion sooner or later, but as of right now, we're not seeing signs of exhaustion on the seller side when we're looking at the daily time frame, right? It looks like price on the buyer side exhausted at these highs, built that resistance, and rather than breaking and continuing to break out higher, we're getting that pullback, and price action is sort of on this pullback phase right now. So we'll start off like always, just marking off our zones, making sure that we have good zones marked off. We have these highs, we have these lows right here, just around the 4670s on this daily time frame. We can see it also lines up with this previous resistance as well, just around this area that price is reacting at right now. So we'll look at that on these intraday time frames as well. 4 hour. On the 4 hour, this was a previous support where price action is right now respecting, right? But on this 4 hour, the pullback phase seems a little bit more clear because again, you go from being very bullish, right? If you're following this sort of structure, to all of a sudden, you're now exhausting at the highs and failing to get those further breakouts towards the upside. And again, you get the exhaustion, you get the attempts to get those breakouts, but price fails to do that. And then as you can see, price action is now breaking structure points on this 4 hour, and again building that corrective phase, that pullback phase on gold right now, right? You can't ignore that. You have the peak at the highs and price action starting to break the structure around here, and then that's where you're at right now. Again, the momentum, looking at this on the 4 hour, as of right now, looks like it's on the bearish side. But again, we'll do the same thing with the 4 hour. We'll go ahead and mark out some zones. 4620s, just around that same area of interest that we were talking about yesterday. And then around the 4600s, you're going to see that on the 1 hour right now. Yeah, just around the 4600. So basically, this is the 4600s, just around here. 4600s is basically a previous area of support on the 1 hour. As you can see that right here. Then you can see where price action, this was yesterday what we were talking about, the rejection of the 4600s, and then price ended up breaking below, stayed below it, but again, it couldn't really hold. It couldn't give us further moves towards the downside. Then you ended up recovering above that area of interest. But now that we're back below that zone and still trading below that area, again, kind of going off of that analysis and following this momentum on the intraday timeframes below the 4600s, again, basically same idea as yesterday for in terms of the sells below the 4600s, that continues to make sense, right? It really wouldn't make sense to look out for buys unless price is having strong and heavy rejections off of these lows here, or if price is recovering and getting back above the 4600s, which above the 4600s, we've seen in the past strong recoveries, even this one right here. This is a pretty strong recovery. This was price action closing and trading back above 4600s, making a move towards the upside, right? So it gives us, again, a clear adaptation point in case price is going to be exhausting on the seller side. And if you're going to be turning bullish, then let's continue to follow that, but only above the 4600s when it comes to those trade ideas for today. Again, as of right now, momentum is pretty bearish. We're still seeing strong rejections off of that area of interest during this hourly candle, which we have about 10 minutes more or less until it closes. Again, as of right now, looks pretty bearish. We're going to continue to follow that unless price action tells us otherwise. Let's see what happened. There you go. What's up, Brian? And good morning to everyone else as well. Edward. Man, my hands have been like super soft recently, I'm not gonna lie. I've been washing my hands so much to like pick up the babies recently. I'm losing my protection. But all right, how's everybody's morning going? How's you guys trading month so far? We had, a lot of people say that August is a very slow month. And I feel like every year, almost, I would say, every year people are constantly talking about this month is good, this month is bad. And at the end of the day, at least in my opinion, it falls down really to that fundamental context, Once you have understanding of fundamental context, doesn't matter if it's summer, winter break, it does not matter. If there's information to price in, the market is going to price in that information. I've seen moves and very strong moves get created during times where, for example, if I can remember correctly, this was back in this had to be like 2021, if I'm not mistaken. And you can go and back test this yourself, which actually I'll do that. But I remember learning about fundamentals and learning about the Federal Reserve, learning about other central banks around the world. And I remember, if I'm not mistaken, it was around December times that the Bank of England, this had to be back in 2021, I believe. In 2021, during the December time, and this was me still learning a little bit about fundamentals. I didn't really know too much. Technicals, same thing. So I was going off of the misconception that, hey, during December, you know, it's Christmas break, banks are closed, this and that, you're not gonna get strong moves during December. And I remember that December, again, I could be mistaken on the year. If I'm not mistaken, it's 2021 on GBP JPY. And again, look this up. The Bank of England was one of the first banks, excuse me, they were one of the first central banks to turn very hawkish, right? To really, let's say, raise the flag and say, hey, look, inflation is getting out of control, because inflation wasn't just out of control or high only in the US. Inflation was high all across the world, you can say. Bank of England, back in those times, they were turning more hawkish. They were talking about raising interest rates to combat that high inflation that you were seeing in the UK, right? Because of that fundamental narrative being at place and that information being priced in, during that December period, dude, GJ was absolutely rallying. It was non-stop, just bullish, back to back bullish, right? And back in those days, that's when I realized, like, damn, you know, people talking about this month being bad or good or this and that doesn't matter. What matters is what's going on, you know, behind the scenes in the on the fundamental scene, really. So don't forget that, guys, because again, you see a lot of people online talking about summer months, winter breaks, Christmas, this and that. A lot of times, yes, you're gonna see that during holidays, it's not ideal, right? It's not ideal to trade. So for the most part, again, you could more or less fall around that guideline to be careful around the holidays. But more importantly, be aware of the overall macro narrative, right? Be aware of what the market is actually pricing in and focusing on. And that way you can also look to follow that same fundamental picture. Because remember, when you are looking at the macro timeframes, and when you look at most asset classes, at least when you're trading, you know, asset classes with like USD assets, I would say, for the most part, it's going to be purely fundamentally respected, right? It's going to understand, or excuse me, you're going to have an understanding of the macro picture and the macro narrative. And it's going to make a lot of sense as to why gold or US dollar is moving the way that it is, right? If you have that macro awareness. If you're constantly relying on patterns, again, it can be difficult to really read the market at times. I'm telling you guys, it's almost like for technical traders, there's no better blessing than having a clear fundamental image or piece of information, let's say. Because although you might be, let's say, clueless to that information that might be happening on the fundamental side, for the most part, again, if it's clear fundamentals and the market is clearly pricing that piece of information in, you're going to see clear one-sided momentum. You're going to see clear bearish price action or clear bullish price action, right? Obviously, depending on the piece of information itself. What's up? What's up? Good morning. Let's watch gold as it approaches this zone. In this zone of interest, if we look at it closely, this zone, let me see, I think on the 1 hour, it looks a little bit more clear. Yeah, on the 1 hour, we have these lows marked off, the overall lows. But as you can see, the zone more or less, like where the candle bodies are closing, is basically where we've reached, right? So it's almost as if we have an area of interest just around the current price point that we're trading by. So I would say this could be a good clean zone or clean level, let's call it, that if we can continue to trade below here, then that momentum might continue to pick up towards the downside, right? Like if we're looking at gold and we look at the structure that it's being created, and we see clear lows being created, right? That's what we're following. Off of these lows and this strong push that we had towards the downside, we have now seen the clear, let's say for example, the clear exhaustion, or I would say rejection and reversal against this overall momentum. And what's keeping us bearish is that price is trading below this area of interest, right? Those 4600s, which is this zone. It was kind of where price got to here and it kind of just rejected before kind of just reacting around the zone, and then you had your move below that area of interest, right? So again, yeah, below here from intraday perspective, it makes sense for us to be on the lookout for those sells, right? But like I always tell you guys, right, there's different phases and different steps when you're looking at the market. So in this case, when we're looking at the market, we've seen the rejection and we've seen price continue to push towards the downside, right? Now that we've seen that and we're past that, what we want to look out for now is those continuations and further signs that price is going to continue on that with that momentum, which in this case, it's the bearish momentum. And like I just pointed out, we have a zone of interest more or less around this area that ideally we can break below. So that way we know we have more chances or a higher chance that price is going to make that final push down into the 4570s, right? Because we don't want to just blindly look at price and think, yeah, because of the fact that we had a strong move down, that means that it's going to move lower, right? Not necessarily. We would, at this point, need to be trading below this zone. So again, our chances and our probabilities increase of us actually seeing a push down to the 4570. And then I would say more importantly, if you do get that push, you can eventually get the break of the lows below this area of interest, right? If that momentum can continue, and obviously if price doesn't get here and then once again starts to exhaust. If you start to exhaust, then at that point, you can look at this as more or less a potential high risk buy zone, and you have a potential buy zone being created at your area of interest, which you are rejecting. Again, we're talking about hypotheticals. And then again, once we get that, that would be the rejections, and then further moves back above this area of interest, right? That's if price reaches this zone and rejects. If not, we know it's clear and simple that below that zone of interest, which would be just a simple break of lows, that's where you're likely to get that continued move lower, right? So I would think that if we can't even retest these lows, and if we're just going to be rejecting this area of interest, at that point, we'd want to be cautious of price breaking out higher, because at that point, we'd be looking at price almost, say, reversing and giving you the potential that if you end up breaking out higher, that's when you're going to get a push back towards the upside on gold. But again, as long as we're trading below this 4600, below here and below here, those are our main sell zones that we're looking out for. This one is not really the cleanest, like this, because it's kind of like a short range, right? Because at this point, if you wanted to have a stop loss, your stop loss would have to be somewhere within these areas here. The potential is all right, you know, for a scalping perspective, sure, that could make sense to look out for continued sells below here, but again, it doesn't really make too much sense from an intraday perspective. From an intraday perspective, you'd want to wait for clearer moves, you know? What's up? What's up? Light looks a little bit dark. What looks dark? I think this light looks fine. Gold tweaking. Hey man, sometimes, you know, you got to be a little bit more patient. You know, for me, man, you know, to be completely honest with you, all these days, I haven't really been able to trade, you know, because it's just been price action forcing me to adapt, which at least for me personally, adapting is not really, let's say, too much within my trading plan. You know, like sometimes, yes, I'll adapt, but for the most part, for me, when I talk about adapting to price action and watching price action go against my overall analysis, for me, usually that just means sit out, you know. I know, you know, obviously I break it down and I, you know, go in depth with you guys and kind of go over all the price points and go over every candle closure and really talk about the potential opportunities that come from price action forming. But you guys don't necessarily hear me telling you like, oh, okay, that means that we're gonna call it a day. No, like for me, that might mean call it a day. For someone else, that might mean they're now looking to take advantage of a certain opportunity, you know? Like you guys here, for the most part, it's usually the same people that are active in the chats, you know? And again, sometimes they'll be taking a trade going with my analysis or going with my adaption, and I'm talking about it perfectly and breaking it down and telling them, hey, look, watch out for this stop loss. If you're gonna look for a trade here, this is what would be ideal, you know, kind of like breaking it all down. But at the same time, again, for me, that might not be too ideal. The conditions might not be too favorable. So I have to step away and walk out. If I was trading by myself, all that would look like is just obviously not taking any trades, probably just walking away from my computer, calling it a day. You know, again, I've told you guys this before. Trading, you get to a point where it sort of gets boring. You know, trading, it used to be, at least for me, it used to be very exciting. You'd be super, you know, eager to see the next candle closure and how is this candle going to close, and if this candle closes this way, that means price is going to go this way, right? And you're always kind of like trying to connect it, one thing with the other. When again, it gets to a point where you're kind of just like, I'm looking for this and that's it. I don't care what anything else happens. I don't know if it's just a mentality that I've built with trading, but it's kind of like what saves me from being too overly active and too attached to the market, let's just say. Just kind of like that vibe and that feeling of just, I kind of don't care, you know. I'm looking for a specific setup that aligns with my analysis, that aligns with my plan, and that's it. You know, it's as simple as that. It should be no different. And again, the only reason I say this is because it should be no different for you guys. As you know, as you see me here talking about the charts, talking about certain candle closures, certain ideas, you know, again, it should be for you guys to be able to follow along, especially for the people that are just starting to trade. But more importantly, that way you guys are able to say, okay, this is the move that I'm waiting for. Whether Tarzan is bullish, whether he's bearish, I think price is going to sell off. I want price to do this below this area. And you set out your conditions and then you watch price action. You get me? You got to be able to make sure you're not only following along, you're not just here to try and copy what I'm saying, but more so you're learning, you're understanding how we're breaking things down. That way you can obviously go and do that yourself. It's almost sometimes, I would say, a little bit sad because I feel like I teach people or I show people a good way to have a good understanding and awareness of the market, right? I don't give people, like I've told you guys before, I don't give you guys the secret strategy and, you know, give you guys this this idea that you're gonna turn profitable if you do this. But it's more so it's information and awareness, and then from that each individual does as they wish with that, right? Some people will just ignore it, not do anything about it. Other people are gonna grab a piece of information that I tell them and do a little bit of a deeper dive into it. For some people, something that I might say today might help them with their trading journal, or again, just to share that different perspective. It can be very valuable. But again, at the end of the day, trading is a very individual game, you know, so you have to make sure you yourself can understand what it is that you're doing. Telling you, I've met plenty of people that they're, and this is not to say that, you know, everybody's a complete beginner here, but I've met people that have been complete beginners. You know, when they do their analysis, they're talking about like, man, how do you even do that analysis? How is it so accurate? And it's not, I always tell people like, it's not that I'm so accurate, but I have really good preparation and conditional zones, let's say, right? In the sense of like, look, I'm waiting for this and I'm waiting for that. So I have my clear step-by-step process. But price may not do this and that. So watch out for this. You get what I'm saying? Like you're kind of like always constantly just following step by step. And then that way you're not guessing, you're more so just following what the market is giving you, right? And you make your decisions based off what the market is actually doing, not what you want it to do. a lot of people that I would talk to and that would join my streams and join my community to trade live with me, they would mainly have that issue where it's like they would do analysis and it would be good analysis, but because they didn't have clear adaptation points, they didn't have a clear game plan as to say like, okay, this is my bias, but despite my bias being on the bullish side, I have to understand that price may turn bearish. A lot of people thought that it was like, okay, I'm gonna do my analysis. If my analysis says I'm bullish, the market needs to go bullish, and that's what I'm gonna look for. And so even when the market was going against them, their mind is so fixated on price being bullish that that's the only thing that they're looking for. And they would just constantly make mistakes, you know? So with time, with people joining the stream and they saw that all we were really doing is trying to add confluences to our setups and not really trying to force anything, before you know it, people are not joining my streams because it's like, oh, you know what? I'm focusing on price action by myself today to make sure I understand what I'm doing. And it's kind of like, damn, cool, but then I just lost a viewer, you know? So, you know, little by little, it was like some people would always join no matter what. But then some people would tell me like straight up, like, oh, do you know what, bro? Like, I've just been looking at price action a little bit different since I started looking at your streams. And I want to make sure I know what I'm doing. And then before you know it, it's like you barely hear from them. It's like, hey, what's up, man? Where you been? And there's like, hey, I'm just looking at the charts now, you know? That's kind of like some people will choose to do that. But again, it's cool, but at the same time, it's almost like bittersweet. It's like, damn, made you too independent, right? I actually just had that conversation with someone that I considered close, you know, even someone that I've met with in the trading world. And I was always like, yo, you're not joining my streams anymore. And they're like, yeah, dude, I mean, I learned how to look at price action differently. I understand fundamentals and I just don't join anybody's stream anymore. And I'm just like, damn, dude, it's like, what happened to our, you know, morning routine? But it's all good. It happens. That at the end of the day is the overall goal, you know? You've seen, I'm sure you guys have met people that it's like they've been joining people's streams for a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, right? And they're still like confused on what they're even doing. Like they haven't even learned anything. Because it's almost like they've just been joining the streams for pure entertainment. Before you know it, 2 years pass by and it's like, damn, all I've been doing is just eating shit for every morning, joining these streams, doing nothing, paying for no reason, and then you didn't even learn anything, you know? I would say that's not the goal. If you're gonna be joining streams, you know, it's to ask questions, understand, from more importantly, I would say it's understanding the thought process, you know? Once you have an understanding of that, I believe, at least for me, that's the experience that I had. Like once I had good understanding and a good thought process to back up my analysis and my trading, that's where I kind of also became pretty independent in the sense of like, I don't want people thinking for me. You know, I don't want to go on Instagram or social media or whatever, on Twitter, and I read a tweet and it's kind of like my whole opinion on gold just changed because of some random analysis I just read online that sort of made sense, and now I'm like questioning my analysis. Like if that's the type of, you know, analyst or trader that you are, then it's like, nah, you need to learn how to read your own chart and have your own clear analysis always. What's up, my friend? Good to see you. Jason, if I'm not mistaken, that was your name, right? Jason? I could be completely off if that's the case. But all right, let's go back to gold. Let me see. I'm still trying to figure out the orb strategy. Gonna have to watch some more videos. Just something isn't clicking. I mean, be careful with strategies and strategy learning. Nah, Jason, you're good. But what I was trying to say is that you got to be careful when you're learning strategies, because when you're learning a strategy, let's call it, you have sometimes that misconception that it's like, oh, it has to work, you know. And I've heard of the orb strategy, you know, from a lot of people, EMAs, Fibonacci's, you get me, all of those things. At the end of the day, it falls down to trial and error and how you figure out how to make that work. I have never, like genuinely speaking, this is genuinely speaking, and I say this after going to not a lot of events, but I've gone to some trading events, and I've met with other traders, whether it's the mentors, the gurus, the trade, whatever you want to call them, right? The people that are making these events, right? And people are going over there to meet them, right? Like I don't want to be rude, but there's like, again, the mentors, then the traders that are like going to meet the mentors, things like that, right? At the end of the day, when I look at the comparison, I don't know, maybe it's just me being overly too observant, but when I see these individuals, I have never in my life, again, at these events, online, through free streams, through paid streams, doesn't matter. I have never in my life met a trader that can genuinely look at me and be like, you know what? I signed up to this person's course, and based on what they told me, that's how I became profitable. Never. I've never. That means that learning strategies, almost, at least the conclusion that I've come to, is kind of pointless. It's not really the correct way to approach learning how to trade. From the traders that I've met that have made money, that have become profitable, that have said also like, okay, yeah, I joined this community, but from there I learned from that community and I came up with something myself. That is completely different. Because there you're joining someone and you're learning from them, and then from there you're grabbing and you're basically grabbing a set of tools, and from there you are able to then make a plan, go and do trial and error, see how it's working, see how it's not working, trial and error again, try a little bit more, fail. Okay, we got to remove this because I've been doing this for 2 months. It's not really working. I need to focus on this. And you add a new rule, right? Those people are the people that end up making money in the market, right? That's why I've always fallen down to the same thing, and I've told you guys this before. Again, the strategy learning thing, the whole idea of that is more so a marketing tactic, Again, that's just me being real with you guys. But again, doesn't mean that you can't learn from someone. It doesn't mean that if right now you're in a mentorship and you have paid someone to learn from them, again, it doesn't mean that you can't learn from them. But again, don't become overly dependent, trying to only look at what they're doing, and more so focus on the learning, the process, the thought process. How did they get to that conclusion, right? If they're telling me these are the trades that they're taking and this is the strategy that they follow, how did they get to that conclusion, Like, you should find ways to actually figure it out yourself. When you do that, again, that's the only type of people that I've met that actually have made money from trading after joining a mentorship. Everybody else that I've noticed, and again, this is, if I've had a conversation with you, I know there's not too many people here in this stream, but if I've ever met you in person and we had a conversation, and again, if you made it seem like you're just trying to copy what someone is doing, I apologize if I was rude in any way, but I most likely told you the same exact thing, right? It's almost like if I'm popping that bubble and I'm like, hey, be careful, because every person I've met that tries to follow this strategy ends up failing. But if they learn about the strategy, it's almost like the guy that you guys saw the other day, Max. That's someone that I saw learning about ICT. They basically, I would say, mastered ICT, but they came up with their own plan. Max is a perfect example of that. The guy that you guys met doing the NAS analysis, again, he's not someone that I would meet and would be like, oh man, ICT is the way, and ICT, you have to learn ICT because it's, that's how you're going to get profitable, and the only profitable traders are the ICT traders. No. He was always someone that understood that, okay, there's a process to this. I can learn about it, but I need to go out onto the chart myself and figure out these entry models, figure out what it is that we're looking for without being dependent on someone. And when you look, at least from what I have spoken with him, you never see him talking about, claiming whether it's profitable, this or that. It's more so just, again, focus on the chart, focus on the technicals, diving into fundamental concepts. You get me? So again, excuse the rant, but I feel like I needed to say that. just in case there's someone in the chat right now that's too maybe married to a certain strategy and they think that's the only way. I promise you, it's not. The way is through learning and through figuring it out yourself with trading. That is, again, in my opinion, as I just said loudly, that is how you end up becoming profitable with trading. And I'm telling you, man, there's not, I can't say this. And it was always something that I noticed. It was always something I was like, damn, dude, this person will have, so many followers, but then the people that are actually making money through what they learn from them, they're not even doing what he's doing. They're doing something slightly different. They figured out a little trick of their own, you know? From the people that have joined, and again, this is from my community that at its peak had about 50 people, you know? So I always had very close talks and like close relationship with everybody that joined my community because there was very few people that would join at a time. It would be like 3 new people, 5 new people, and I would talk to every specific person, again, individually. And the only people that I saw actually make progress and actually improve, which are the people that stay with me basically until the end, those were the people that grabbed my piece of information, my knowledge, and they went and expanded that and did something else with that. It wasn't like, oh, I just listened to Tarzan and he said something and that made me profitable. It was more so like I helped them connect the pieces, but at the end of the day, they're the ones in charge of really putting the puzzle together. Because I can't do that for someone else. You know, I can't think for you while you're behind the screen. We can analyze this together, you know, and we can look over the pieces of information together. But at the end of the day, you're the one putting that together, you know? That's why with education and with trading, at least for you guys, and you guys that are here in this chat, focus on that. Focus on learning, because the part where, you know, where you make money and all of that, that comes naturally from that process. It's almost like a guarantee. It's the exact experience that I had with trading. Like, I kid you not, it was not until I literally said, you know what, forget the money. Forget trying to make money. And I promise you, from there and making that switch of understanding, you know what, again, although I'm here to make money, if I focus too much on making money, all I'm gonna do is end up losing my money, if that makes sense. So then obviously when I focused on just following a specific chart, I followed a specific asset. I'm not really looking to steer away from that. I'm looking at it during the same session, using the same concepts. I'm not adding one indicator one day, taking it off the other, nothing like that. Just simply this, it's always the same thing, consistency over anything. From there, naturally, whether I wanted to or not, because I was doing things correctly, I was getting paid through my trading. Again, because you focus on doing things correctly. The moment you steer away from that, the moment you start thinking, I gotta make more money, I gotta risk more, your brain just starts to naturally excuse behaviors that you know you shouldn't be doing. And then you're once again in that tilt mode. You're once again losing out on money. So take that as you wish. But now, let's do some US30 analysis. I feel like that was a good little ranting session. And that way you guys can, again, have some different perspectives when it comes to trading education. All right, let's do some US30 analysis. US30, we can really use the same zones from these past couple of days, right? Because you have price still reacting off these highs, still reacting off these same lows that we're currently sitting in right now. When you look at the 4-hour, I would say very similar story, right? I would say it's similar highs. If anything, we can remove this one, mark off more this high right here, the more recent one. Let's see how that looks like on the 1-hour. Yeah, 53,700s right there. 53,700s. If we look at the daily, that's a good zone, which is again this area of interest. If we look at the 4-hour, same thing, right? It's these highs, so we understand that it's telling us the same thing. 1-hour, it slightly broke above, but you can see it got pretty messy around that area. It kind of overall still reacted at this main zone, the 53,700 on US30, right? But either way, right now we're pretty far away from that, so it's not something we're too worried about. this zone here as well, we can move it. And I would say that as of right now, because we have the daily time frame still more on the bullish side, if we can remain above these 53,300s, I would remain bullish on US30, right? So that means bullish above this zone of interest. As you can see, this is a previous buy zone, a pretty important one. That if it's like, okay, below this zone, sure, we can have some session, or excuse me, some sells take place below that. But as long as we're reacting and as long as we continue to reject this area of interest, I think we could see some further moves towards the upside. What we can do is zoom in a little bit more. And I do notice the momentum that we have that's towards the downside, which makes it pretty clear, just like we have any other day, right? Our bias is going to be more on the bullish side with US30. But I would want to be clear of one thing. I want to make sure that now that we're creating this minor range, I want to make sure, for one, we do not break these lows. Because if we end up breaking these lows, that means that this momentum is still following through, and we're going to see possible sells take place below the 53,300s. But if we can continue to exhaust and reject this area that we're at, and once we start breaking back above here, which is basically like the 53,360s, more or less, not 360s, 365, which is again above these lower time frame highs right here, I'm thinking we can see a move back towards the upside on US30. Again, that's just kind of like looking at this current momentum, seeing that price has stopped at these lows, but again, we have these clear highs to break out of. It's almost as if price almost does the same thing over and over and over again. Obviously, you just have to react to it in different times, right? But it's basically the same thing, right? We have our rejections and our exhaustion. That's one. Now we're looking for the breakout and the possible continuation for price to reverse against this overall movement that you have towards the downside. So again, you want the exhaustion, which is what we're getting right now, but now we really want those breakouts and those break of structure on these lower time frames. So we know that the momentum that was pushing price lower in this case, starting to die out, and that would be possible moves back towards these highs on US30. And we have about 5 minutes more or less until NYSE open. So a little bit of a short analysis, but that's a pretty clear example. And then again, clear invalidations would be strong breakouts and closures back below this zone of interest, which is below the 53,300s. When is Max section? I don't know if Max will do any other sessions, but if he ever is gonna get back, I will let you guys know. I know for sure that, like, for example, if I have like a day that I know for sure I'm gonna miss, then that's where Max might be able to come in and, you know, basically run those sessions for me. But for the most part, from my understanding, I don't think Max does too many live sessions. All right, we're seeing some initial moves here on US30. We're getting those breakouts above those lower time frame zones. With gold never gave a further move lower. We just got retest of this area, and the price has been recovering off of this zone. So right now we're gonna see, at this point, we're really just waiting for price to do a deeper pullback into the 4600s, which we know as long as we reject below 4600s, we're gonna remain on the bearish side. That we're pretty clear of. But as we know, if we start to break above and close above, that's where our analysis might become invalidated, and we might have to switch to a more buyer bias on gold above the 4600s. I think that can make sense. I didn't even see that message earlier. Just bagged the 1 to 7 RR trade on gold sells. If you're still here, nice, brother. My bad. Oh yeah, let's watch US30. Sorry, I was watching it here, my bad. All right, we're approaching NYSE open. We're getting that initial breakout above our zone of interest. This is good in terms of like rejections. That still leaves us in the clear to look out for further rejections off of this zone. All right, let's see US30. We have about 40 seconds, basically, until NYSE open. I want to see if we're going to have a further push above, say another breakout above this zone. Just kind of this zone of interest that we have here towards the left. If we can get further breakouts above here, I'm thinking more probabilities in our favor to eventually potentially reach back at the 53,500s. All right, we're getting an initial breakout. All right, price is giving us these reactions at these precise areas right now. Yeah, this opening this opening of the market, the volatility always is so crazy. If you trade those opens, you have to make sure you know what you're looking at. You have to make sure you understand the added volatility that kicks in. Because sometimes, and this was a lesson that I learned myself, the volatility from that market open, when you are in the market and you're risking more than you are comfortable with risking, and volatility kicks in, it is not a comfortable feeling. It is like very uncomfortable. It's a time of high uncertainty, you could say. Even if you're in profit, if you're just risking too much during those times of volatility, even profit might be something that's too overwhelming to handle. So you got to make sure you understand what you're looking at and you're comfortable with that. If not, watch it. Maybe trade demo if you're just like a beginner trader. And then from there, make your decision of whether or not you want to trade open or if you want to wait 5 minutes, after open. I've met people that successfully have done both, you know. I've met people that during market open, they take advantage of quick moves, quick impulsive moves, but they know they're done trading 10 minutes after. They take their trades during the market open volatility. They attempt that for 5 minutes, looking for moves. On both sides, I've seen, looking for sells, looking for buys, depending on where price is going to break out. But they're disciplined enough to only do that. So again, after they've taken 2 or 3 trades, if they lost those 2 or 3 trades, they're done for the day. They're not here an hour later still looking to take advantage of something, right? So even sometimes if your strategy is going to be super simple, what it really falls down to is, again, just how consistent you can be following through on those ideas. because that's where a lot of people, I would say, go wrong. And again, watch US30 as you're now once again reacting at these lows. You have obviously these clear lows that if you're breaking through, then you're most likely going to have a continued sell below this. Let's be more precise. Below 53,319 is where you can see a further breakout lower. But anything above that, you're still in the clear for buys. And then this would be your next zone of interest, which you really gotta close above, because we're getting the initial breakouts above, but we're not getting any strong candle closes above. So right now, this is good. In terms of the reactions, I mean, a quick pop-up right here off of this area. Let's see if we can get above our main zone now. But again, like I was saying, as we're watching price here, and this is a clean one. Sorry, a little lost there. But all right, just manage your trades accordingly, guys. You see, gold is good. The US30, nice rejection there. When I mean close above, I ideally am talking about more or less like a 15-minute or a 30-minute candle close above. Anything below that is, in my opinion, jumping the gun, which that's where sometimes it can get a little bit difficult. But for the most part, when I say close above, yeah, I mean at least, let's say maybe when we're looking at US30, at least on the 5-minute, because US30, since it's a little bit more volatile, then the more volatile for me, the more, I don't want to say importance you can put behind the lower time frame, but the more accurate you want to be using the lower time frames to make sure you have a clear understanding where you're looking at. Because if you're looking at the lower time frames and you're waiting for a 1-minute candle close, it's not really too good. So you at minimum want to get a 5-minute candle closure, a 15-minute candle closure. That way you have further probabilities in your favor, right? In this case, this is good in the sense for the people, for example, if you were going off these aggressive sells off of this area, you had an aggressive retest off that zone. If you trusted your analysis and trusted your idea, you got in those buys. At this point that you're seeing the 5-minute candle closing above your zone of interest, you know, that still gives you decent confluences and good let's say confirmations that you're closing above an area of interest. You could see a move towards the next area of interest, which would be, the highs would be 53,500. Yeah, 53,500s. But looking at the current price action, even the 53,470s is already a good area of interest, you know? If you're waiting for candle closures, and this is one thing I want to be clear of, candle closures a lot, for me, really it means kind of like further confluences. Not necessarily does it mean it gives you an entry. At least for me personally, I'm not a big fan of entering during candle closures. I'm probably already in the trade or waiting to take a trade when the candle is closing, you know? Like if I'm talking about, okay, let's wait for this candle closure, that's because I'm most likely either, again, waiting for a trade, or I'm already in a trade and I just need another confirmation to tell me whether I want to hold or not. In this case, absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. The retest was aggressive. This breakout was, you know, you guys have heard me talk about it before. Sure, it made sense, but again, at least for me personally, I'm not the biggest fan of breakouts. I'm more of a fan of these type of moves. Aggressive retest, understand, literally the same lesson I've told you guys about yesterday. Again, everybody has their own different ways. I think I saw someone, was that a mistake? I'm not sure. But again, this is, again, not to say that if it's a good, bad opportunity, everybody has their own different ways of looking at risk, right? But again, in this case, you have your room of error really just below this area. So you know, okay, it's below this zone that if you start breaking below, that's where you're likely gonna see a move lower. That's a clear stop loss area. In this case, or excuse me, before I move on, that's a clear stop loss. Your target can be this zone, or it could have been these highs, because at least you have still this much to gain or even this much to gain, right? Obviously, all depending on what it is exactly that you're looking for. And then, like I've explained to you guys before, sure, this was a good zone in the sense that it was like a lower time frame zone. Like you guys heard me talk about, candle closures above this area would just further give signals that we could make a move higher. Because obviously, if we're rejecting this zone, then we could possibly make a move lower, right? You're adding probabilities. I'm not saying what's going to happen. You're just stating what to look out for. In this case, we already had our bias. We had our analysis set out. We didn't get our bias invalidated because we did not break any lower, right? Price action, again, gave you minor reactions at these highs. But again, look at the pullback. It did not really pull back below your area of interest. It sort of just did a healthy pullback. Overall, still respecting the structure. And again, when you're looking at this, in hindsight right now, sure, makes perfect sense. Look at those clean buys. But when you're looking at it, really, it's kind of like, okay, where would you have placed your stop loss? Because if you put a stop loss here, price could have easily pulled back, bounced again, and then continued without you, right? That's not really too ideal. So it's kind of like, okay, you have this much to gain. When you have this much to lose, you have to pick and choose whether you want to be in that move. Or with these types of moves, the way that I used to approach it, not anymore because I'm not really that type of an aggressive scalper anymore. But say the breakout candle that took place right here. What I used to do always was, if I'm looking at a breakout, say even before, say I was looking at a breakout earlier, if I'm looking at a breakout, I'm looking for price to obviously break above the highs. But in this case, because I have just this much to gain and such a large stop loss, I'm not going to put that large stop loss. What I'm looking for is momentum in my favor. I need price to move in my favor right now because I'm looking for a scalp and I'm looking for momentum to be in my favor. And momentum needs to be in my favor right now if we're going to have strong volume, right? Something like this, where it's like in this case, again, this was the overall move that you wanted, but as price broke out, you actually ended up sweeping back these lows. You could have gotten taken out right here, let's say more or less, if you had your stop loss just below these candle body wicks, right? But same idea, 2 minutes after, with let's say again, same idea to look out for buys above here, your stop loss somewhere below these candle body wicks, or at least below this candle wick. In this case, that would have played out. So in that way, when you're risking, you only are risking a little bit below your zone. You still have a lot to gain. In terms of accuracy, you're going to have to be very accurate because of the fact that this same idea twice would have given you two different results. Again, and literally just a timing difference of 2 minutes. Again, 2 minutes too early, price action stopped you out, and you got taken out on the breakout. As you can see, price ended up reversing and getting back to your zone of interest, rejects, breaks back above. So again, same exact area of interest, same idea. It breaks back above, no drawdown, and you go straight to take profit. Does that make sense, guys? So again, it's not to say whether one idea was better than the other. It's just that each specific trader is going to have different ideas and different ways to handle or to analyze the market, you know. At the end of the day, the analysis that we did, it applies to all. You get me? Because we talked about earlier about the potential for buys here. Without saying that price was going to bounce here, we talked about what we needed to see or what we wanted to see for that. You got just that. After this, again, we don't jump to conclusions and say, well, if price is gonna reject this zone, it has to go here. It doesn't have to do that. But what preparations do we have for price to maybe do that? Well, we have these highs, we have these lows. Let's set our conditions. Below here, our bias gets invalidated, and then the analysis gets invalidated. Most likely price is going to have a move lower. That's one scenario that could play out. The other one is, okay, you get the rejections. Now you need the breakouts above your zones of interest for further confluences, that price is going to reach this zone, because if you're getting here and reacting, look at price before. What has it done here when it has reacted at this area? Well, it's pulled back. So probabilities, if price, again, remember, it's probabilities always at the end of the day. If price is rejecting this zone, then the probabilities are that if we look at price action, again, where are the probabilities on? That it's going to do a pullback, just as it did here. Because again, all we're doing is using the study of price action. But again, obviously, looking at this in hindsight, it was basically a perfect trade because of the fact that price rejected, and then after the rejection, broke and closed above on the 5-minute above this area, didn't look back, and now you're just continuing, right? So again, someone had the chance or someone had the idea to look for buys here. Someone else, maybe they had the idea to wait for price to close back above your area of interest. This was an entry model that I used to use before. I used to wait for a candle to close in my favor, and then I would wait for price to break out above or below that candle, which in this case, it would have been the rejection candle, break above this candle, and then you had your move take place, right? That's something that I used to do before. Now I've gotten a lot more used to getting candle closures and confirmations off of this area. So when price does get to that zone once again, I'm already in that retest and I'm already in that trade for the most part. But again, someone had the idea to look for buys here, someone maybe right here, someone maybe right here, someone maybe right here. Who is to say they were right or wrong? Again, it does not matter. What matters is price action, what actually took place, and how you could have taken advantage of that. I've basically just broken down 5 different ways that you could have taken advantage of that. Again, not to say that you should have taken a trade here, 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 and here. Again, this is not hindsight analysis. We're not here to talk about that. I'm just letting you guys know the opportunities that exist through the talks that we have about the certain price points. Ta-da. What's up, Zorn? Well, yeah, that was a good little example there with US30. Now again, step by step, level by level, look at where price is at right now. Look at the next candle closures. Okay, you have the 15-minute candle clearing these highs, still showing you good good signs or good confluences that above this zone, right? Keep in mind the key words. Above this zone, we continue to have confluences in our favor for further buys to take place. Taking it step by step, that means that price needs to remain above the 53,500s. Excuse me. And now at this point, breakout of these highs, so you could eventually reach 53,600s. Step by step, level by level, you do as you wish with that information. So far, so good. You know, still following this decent moment. And I say decent, humbling, because this is strong bullish momentum that we're seeing right now. On the gold side, we almost got the retest, but now we've gotten the move to the lows. Now this is where price gets interesting with gold, because we're still very much looking out for potential buys off of this zone. The only thing that's keeping me a little bit cautious of that idea is the momentum that's picking up towards the downside. So what I want to start to see is clear exhaustion at these lows and clear retest and clear price action trading back above the 4580s. So that would mean, to take it back here, that would mean we have, okay, momentum towards the downside. So that's one. That still gives the idea that price could break lower because you didn't end up getting that full retest, right? Which means as price action had buyers attempting to push price higher, as you can see, sellers stepped in very aggressively and pushed price lower. That's why I don't want to blindly look to take buys off this area. But if we can get clear exhaustion and rejections, that would be one good confirmation. The next thing I want to see is price climbing back above here, so we can get a basically a rinse and repeat, basically a replica of this. You have a strong impulsive move lower, you have your rejections, price climbs back above, almost gave the retest, but then you had your continuation. So I would say that's a possible scenario. If you get your rejections, price needs to climb above this area. ideally give a retest, or if it can give a retest, we know that aggressively price could move higher off of this zone. That would be a good idea to look out for. Again, simple analysis. That means that if you start to break and close below this zone, let's say in the next 15 minutes, that would be a 1 hour candle closing below your zone. That's completely invalidating this buy idea. So keep that in mind. But I think with today, with the move that we had on US30, that wasn't too bad for today's analysis session. Even if gold sells off against the analysis, it's all good. If gold sells off against the analysis today, that would be pretty much every day for me that I wasn't able to trade gold. Because all these days I've been looking for pullbacks on gold, and as price is doing that pullback, ends up breaking lower, and it's like, damn, no trade for me again. So that basically means that my gold analysis hasn't been too good, because I've been waiting for one idea and it's just been getting invalidated. And again, I haven't really been able to take advantage of that. Hi guys, I'll share the message. What's up, Zuan? Good to see you. Yeah, on US30, that was a clean rejection candle. It was. That with the stop loss just below it, like after this rejection candle with the stop below it, still gave you the clear to take. This would have been already a 1 to 2 quick with a decent stop loss. Even if you had a little bit of a larger stop, still overall gave you a 1 to 2. Overall, you got about a 1 to 3. But yeah, zone to zone, super clean. Yes, my friend Luna. Yes, I got you. Most likely tomorrow. Make sure you guys join tomorrow's session. So we will most likely be doing a giveaway tomorrow. Let me see. I'm in sales. Target is 45.49. This is on 45.49. It's pretty. This is around. It would be around here. Not a bad target, but look at what price is doing. Again, be careful with the way that these candles close. That's the 5-minute right there, already giving you a struggle off of that area of interest. So you're seeing exhaustion at these lows, definitely. Like you're getting the attempts, but the pushback from the buyers is pretty strong. Yeah, I would say once you start to see it climbing back above 45.80s, that's your stronger signs that price is likely gonna reverse. This was in a very aggressive rejection. I would say, yeah, this was super aggressive rejection. I would say very clean if we can get another retest, another rejection, and then you move back up. If it just moves right now, that would be super aggressive. Profit is profit. As soon as it closed, I hit buy. Yeah, that was clean. That was clean. The breakout was all right. You know, again, I wasn't a big fan of the breakout, because the initial breakout that took place reversed and faked out, and then that's where that pullback took place. So the pullback was a lot cleaner. And then obviously in hindsight, this breakout afterwards, that was great. Because if you took the breakout off the same zone with the same stop loss, I would say a tight stop loss would have been good enough. You saw no drawdown and it was just straight profit. Those are always the best trades. Those are the trades that are ideal when you take breakouts. The trades that you don't have any drawdown and you just have a continued push in your favor. There's no better feeling than that one when it comes to trading. I used to love that when I took trades, the breakout trades. But damn, bro, those breakout trades that I would take and it would reverse, those were the most humiliating. Because that's where you have the most confluences. You have trend in your favor, structure in your favor. You have candles closing in your favor. Momentum looks like it's in your favor. The moment you enter, it completely reverses. It's like, damn, bro, there's nothing more embarrassing than that. Nothing more embarrassing than that. So, what's up, Marcia? Joining a little bit late to us. It's all good. Let me see. You're in buys off of on gold, or you're talking about these buys on US30? I would say keep it composed. I would say if you're in gold buys, this is pretty clean. It was very aggressive, I would say, because you had a pretty strong breakout below. But then as you saw price rejecting and getting back above your zone, say you had like maybe this as your entry point, you would have, I would say, pretty large room to gain, very much less to risk. You have one side clear where it's like, okay, you're in the trade, you have your rejections, that's good. Right now, what we need to do is clear these highs, which we're basically reacting at right now. Just basically where we have our zone listed. You know, it's not perfect right now, the line that we have, but it's basically the same zone, the 40, just around the 45.80s. We ideally need to start trading above here, so that way we basically are not following this downside momentum, right? We don't want to stay below this zone, and then it kind of just leaves us still within an area that price could sell off, you know? So it's like, okay, the rejections are good, but again, we need to make sure we get the clean move above this zone. So watch as price action is once again at this zone. I would say it'll be a pretty important candle closure this 1 hour. So if you're in buys, or you're looking to take buys, but you see that this 1 hour candle is closing way below, if you can manage your risk, I would manage your risk. I wouldn't really look to take a risk when price action is clearly moving to the downside. But if you can leave a wick off of this area, you have price action still rejecting this zone, then you look at the past and you've seen, okay, rejection wicks in the past have eventually led up to a move higher. Rejection wick right here, move higher. If we leave a rejection wick right here, probabilities or price action says that we could see a move higher. Remember, it's all about probabilities and then letting the market do what it's going to do. Gold, quick scalp. Oh, okay, you took... Well, I'm confused. So you took the buys and got out for a 1 to 2? Or is that what you were looking for? Because price kind of reversed once again back to that area. So if you were looking for still a trade, then maybe you got taken out break even, I'm assuming. If not, then yeah, if you were back in the trade from these lows, then that was a decent scalp. Like if you were in something like this, overall you moved about precisely about 100 pips if you were able to time that good. With the stop loss not too large, that's basically your quick 100 pip move for the day right there. Still in sells. Oh, so you're in sells. See what I'm saying? Some people make some money taking buys. Some people were already in sells and looking to take advantage of that. Again, to each their own with their trading. Notice how somehow, and that's the beautiful thing about this market, somehow, as of right now, from my understanding, both people made money, or they've made some money. Oh, okay, it was a quick scalp. Tales of Emuko, that's a cool name. Or wait, yeah, Tales of Emuko. Sounds like a Japanese samurai warrior story. This guy is Juan. Are you ready? This is the most legendary, this is like the best trade of the century right here. This is the question that I get all the time, and I always flex on everybody. Everybody that asks me this question, it's the biggest flex I have in my life. You said, did I have a boy or a girl? How about this? How about I had both? I had both. I had a boy and a girl. Best of both worlds. So yeah, that's right. I want to see you beat that. Next trader that flexes on me, that's what I'm gonna tell them. Next trader that pulls up on me in a Lambo, I'm be like, where are your twins, huh? Where's your boy and your girl? Yeah, that's right. Get out of here with your Lambo. With your one-seater. No, I'm kidding. I can't be a hater. I would want me a Lambo with, despite having twins or not. But yeah, I had twins, bro. I had a boy and a girl. It's been some exhausting days, man. You could imagine, bro. You could imagine. Yeah, it's no sleep. No sleep, bro. No sleep. Like, sleep is honestly, like, I'm thinking back to my days where I was sleeping 4 hours, 5 hours, and waking up like, I don't want to wake up. And you wake up like moody, and you're just like not in the mood, you know? 4 or 5 hours of sleep, let's be real. It's not ideal. You can look up any science that you want, anywhere that you look at the information and the data says it clearly. Humans need, at minimum, I believe men need less. It was at minimum like 6 or 7 hours of sleep, at minimum, for you to go into REM sleep, this and that. Bro, I've been getting 3 solid hours, like at most. My poor wife, even worse. She's up every 2 hours, every hour, and it's like her naps are, she's basically been taking naps since it started. For me, I got lucky, you know, I have to go to work. I got to go to a separate room at night, and I gotta, you know, hey, at 1 in the morning, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta be up early in the morning, you know? So I've been getting a good 3 hours. I think the other day I got like 4 hours of sleep, which was great. But it's crazy, man. I mean, imagine, guys, you think having one baby is hard. And you see people with one baby struggling, they're trying to keep the baby down. Bro, imagine 2 at the same time. Imagine you just spend 1 hour coddling a baby, you change them, change the diaper, while you're changing this is the crazy part about babies, bro. They're babies. They're not, this was something that I came to the like realization of, you know, I thought they were like little humans that a little understood something. Bro, they don't understand anything. They're just like lost. They're babies. So it's like, bro, it's funny. It's funny because it's like, yo, come on, like, you're a human, like, figure it out. They're like a few days old and I'm already telling them to figure it out. So yeah, when you come to that realization, then it's like, damn, you know, it's kind of like you have no choice but to let this baby cry and let this baby figure it out. But bro, you have a baby and you change them. As you're changing them, they just poop their life away. Or you're changing, bro, the other day I went to the pediatrician. I'm like changing the baby girl. I pick up my baby boy. Pee is going all over me. Like, bro, what is this? Like, what is going on? It's crazy. That's the worst, man. You're changing a baby and they shit in the diaper as you're changing them. And you're like, bro, you couldn't have done that 30 seconds ago. Like when you had the old diaper on. You could have just released the load right there and you had to do it in the new diaper. Now you go through it again. But imagine, you do all that. That's one baby. You put the baby down and the other baby is already crying. There's no laying down. There's no, I'm gonna get some rest. Nah, pick up the other baby. Let's go figure this out, you know? By the time you're done with that baby, the other baby is already crying. Put the baby down. Now you gotta feed this baby. You're done feeding the baby, burping the baby. Do it again. Do it again with the other baby now. Or again, try to do it now together. I got smacked with reality. It's bad. It's bad. And it would be something different where it was like, you know what, if they had like a timer where it was like, okay, fine, we've done everything. They're changed, they're fed, new clothes, temperature is perfect. We got a humidifier in the room. Everything is perfect. There's a beautiful red light in the room. Everything is perfect. They just start crying. That's it. That's it. No reason at all. You lay down and you're just like, bro, give me, I used to tell my babies, yo, give me 1 hour. I realized that's not realistic. So now it got to like, okay, give me 30 minutes. That's not realistic. Give me 15 minutes. Sometimes I get the 15 minutes. For the most part, it's like, all right, please give me 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes. You put the baby down, you lay down for 10 minutes. As you're about to fall asleep and you're like about to go, nope. The baby starts crying for fucking, I don't know, bro. Just no reason. Get up again. And it's been over and over and over. It's been, yeah. But I will say, for anybody that's thinking of having babies or you think it's worth it, it's 100% worth it. 100% worth it. At least that's what I think. Imagine being a mother. Yeah, dude, that's. Sometimes I look at my wife and I think, damn, you are a warrior. Because I choose, coming to work, and I have to. I don't really choose it. I have to come to work, So it's kind of like, I have a responsibility to go to. You're lucky to be able to stay at home. Let me get to work. Let me pay these bills, All right, that's enough baby talk. But yeah, thank you guys. I don't think some of you knew that, but yeah. If you ever see me miss out, you're most likely right. You're correct to assume that I'm at home handling that. So imagine being a baby. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like the mentality that I've tried to put myself into. When they're just crying and they don't stop and they have everything they need, you just kind of like sit there and you're like, damn, bro, like, I mean, I don't know what they're looking at. I don't know what they hear, see. If things are blurry, they can't even see correctly. They can't even see me. Fuck, bro, like, give them a chance, Having this baby talk in gold is giving still some opportunities on the buy side. It's not really breaking or closing below those lows. So that opportunity is still there. It's still on the higher risk side, but it's still there. 45.80s is another potential opportunity. US30 is trading below your zone. I would say be careful with pullbacks as price is trading below this area of interest. We need the continuations to take place above the above the 53,500s and above the 53,550s. Those are your main buy zones back on US30. That's hilarious. I would say a good father, yes. For the most part. I don't like changing diapers. I will say that publicly. Not a fan of changing diapers. I'm just too slow, and I'm not a fan of getting pissed on, and it's happened to me multiple times. You're just changing the baby and all of a sudden, boom. Now you gotta clean them and oh my God. And I feel like the mom does this just so fast. It's like quick, change the diaper, and it's like before you know it, they're done. And I'm just there like thinking about everything. It's just, yeah, changing diapers is not my favorite. I'll feed the baby, burp the baby, it's all good. Listen, the baby has food, roof over their head. They're good, they're safe, they're in a good neighborhood, living a good life. They're good, man. My babies have double of everything. Double bed, double seats, double car, everything is double. Everything they have two of. If one bed is taking up, you grab the baby, put them in the other bed. That's like a luxury right there. That's a bougie baby right there. Literally everything they need. Multiple bottles, different bottles, sizes, bottle warmers, bottle washer. Bro, my house became just baby central. There's baby things everywhere. I have like, I think 4 changing tables. I have like 2 upstairs, 2 downstairs. Fuck. It's crazy. I would agree with you, Zwan. At least you just do all this one time and you're good instead of having them separate and spaced apart. Yeah, it is true. I guess later on I'm gonna see it that way. But right now it's tough, bro. Right now it's tough. It's again, it's beautiful. But bro, when you're exhausted and when you're just like sleep deprived and your body is asking to go and lay down on that bed, and you can. The bed is right there. You could just go. But at the same time, you go lay down and it's like, bro, the baby's crying, dude. What are you gonna do? Ignore the baby? So, and it's not good to ignore a baby because babies that cry too much, they get full of gases. So it's like, if you let them cry too much, they're just gonna cry more and more and more and more and more because they're just getting gassy. So it's just like, fuck, you have to pick up the baby. So yeah, it's tough. Right now, at least the way I see it, it's like, fuck. Yesterday, I got home exhausted and I was like, I was fiending to take a nap. I never took that nap. Never. Yeah, and it's not even an endless cry. It's more like a consistent cry. It's more like every 3 minutes they cry. And they chill out for 2 minutes and you breathe for 2 minutes. And then boom, they cry again for 5 minutes. And then it's like, okay, 5-10 minutes of just holding them, letting them chill. They chill for 5 minutes and then boom, they start, you know? That's what gets sometimes a bit irritating. That it's just like so back and forth. And it's like, bro, can you just stop for 30 minutes and then cry the rest or something? No, can we do this? No, it's just like 2 minutes down, cry, pick up, 2 minutes. But they are cute. They are. I would agree. Sometimes. After 2 hours of doing that, the baby stopped being that cute. I will admit. You start looking at the baby like, yo, what do you want? Like, come on, like, it's 3 a.m, bro. Like, let's figure this out. Why weren't you crying like this earlier that day? That's another thing that's annoying. They'll sleep for 3 hours straight during the day when you're wide awake and you're doing things. But then come that nighttime and everything is off and everything is perfect. Boom. That's when they cry. I was telling my girl the other day, I'm like, yo, maybe we should just keep the lights on and the TV on at all times and just let them figure it out. If they want to be up at night, just, okay, let them, I think they're confused. That's what I was telling her. I was like, I think they're confused right now. They think they sleep during the day, stay up at night. They have it mixed. We're going to have to figure something out. So now I'm like trying to go out during the day like a regular human being because we have, what is it called? We're diurnal species. So that means we're up during the day, sleeping at night. So it's like, okay, during the morning, here you go. Here's the sun. Let's wake up. Let's get into, you know, the nature of things. Nighttime, you need to go to sleep. You need to figure this out. And keeping a baby awake is harder than you would expect. And at least my babies, bro, they sleep through anything during the day. You could be cooking, music is on, TV is on, or whatever the case may be, and they're just there knocked out. But then it's like quiet and peaceful and they're crying. I was like, what the fuck? So you never really know. I can tell you are exploring the early father stage hard. I'm proud of you, big boy. That's crazy, big boy. Yeah, I mean, thank you. Thank you, thank you. It's a newborn stage is definitely, I've heard it's a journey. I've heard it's just survival, really. Survival for the parent, survival for the child. So when you have two, it's kind of like, fuck. It's a little bit. I can't imagine 3. You know, people that have triplets. Oh my, can you imagine triplets? That's insane. Twins is all right. I feel like twins is easy in the sense of like, if I have a kid again and it's one kid, that's probably gonna be so easy. Like a piece of cake. But with 2, sometimes it's only difficult when you put one baby down and then the other one starts and you're like, damn, okay, here I go again. You know, and then before you could even rest and put the other one down again, the other one starts. And it's like, sometimes though, I'm not gonna sit here and complain. I do think I have good babies, I'm not gonna lie. They don't really cry that much. It's just they cry at night, which is like the worst part. But I think my babies are almost perfect. But anyways, guys, gold is still lingering, still giving those opportunities. This is what I mean by the difference with gold and US30. US30 sometimes, if it's gonna give a bounce, like look at the comparison of that bounce comparing to gold. You know, it was like pretty aggressive bounce versus this bounce is kind of like it's exhausting and bossing. It's clearly pausing. You still have your clear invalidation point. You know, at this point, you should have already been in trades, you know, off of these lows if you were looking to take buys with a clear stop loss below. That way, you know you're up and you can manage your risk, you know, a little bit better. Thank you. Thank you. Blessings to you as well, my friend. And nah, that's another thing. That's why I say I think I have really good babies because I never really see them like wake each other up. They more so, they just wake up on their own. But like if one baby is crying and the other one is sleeping, bro, the other one is sleeping. Like it doesn't even matter. They usually don't make each other cry. And I've noticed that because at nighttime, when you would think it's like, okay, they're both asleep, they're both good. If one starts crying, you're gonna try and pick up the other to like get the other one to not wake up. But bro, like last night I had put them to sleep and I went to sleep for like 5 minutes. And bro, the baby kept crying. So I was like, you know what, bro, you're gonna have to give me 1 minute of me just with my eyes closed. And I kind of just ignored him for like for a minute and the other baby never woke up. I was like, at this point, I don't care if you both wake up. You're both gonna deal with crying. How about that? And I sat there for a good minute, got up, got the baby. The other one stayed completely asleep. Put the other one on my chest. Within 5 minutes, knocked out, put him down, went to sleep and called it a night. That was at like 1:30 in the morning when I went to sleep. So yeah, in reality, I went to sleep today at like 2 in the morning, woke up at 6. So yeah, I mean, what is that, 3 hours if? I can't complain, man. I'm raising beautiful children. I hope that they will be great additions to this world. And with what I'm teaching them, with my morals and values, they will be great additions to this world. So thank you guys for your messages. I appreciate that a lot. I hope that one day they're able to maybe look back and see that this is what I was doing while they were at home just being babies, being newborns. It's funny because the baby is the boy looks like the boy looks like my wife. The girl looks like me. And the boy kind of behaves and has a little bit of a character of the wife, and the girl is more like me. Because the girl is super calm. She's like a super calm baby. She's the one that barely cries. She barely cries, but when she cries, she like she screams and cries. The boy is like super sensitive, you know, like he's like crying over anything. So, and it's annoying because it's the boy, and you can, as a man at least, I immediately see the difference in kind of like, not that I don't love the boy, but the boy is kind of like tough love. Like, come on, bro, like quit the crying. I know you're 2 weeks old, but let's go. Let's figure this out, man. The girl is like, no, let's sit here. You know, we're gonna be patient with the girl. The boy, I'm already like roughening up. Like, bro, come on, let's figure this out. But he cries for everything, so it's like, dude, figure it out, bro. But yeah, it's funny that he looks like her, she looks like me. I'm curious to see what they're gonna look like later on, because I feel like babies change a lot throughout these first couple of months. But that was funny to see. When I first saw them, I was like, damn, they did this. God hit the switcheroo on us. I always told her, I always thought the boy was gonna look like me and the girl would look like her, but it was literally the opposite. It's funny. Funny how genes work. But all right, guys, I think we can call it a session here. We've had great conversations with gold. Gold so far hasn't really given too much opportunities in the sense of like things that we've called out. The only opportunity so far has been the short-lived buys that took place off of this aggressive rejection. The rejections that have come afterwards have been decent so far. Let's say, for example, if you were at least within the minimum of this price range, you had a stop loss of no larger, I would say, of 50 pips. And so far, you're up at least a 1-to-1 if you were able to get a decent entry from those lows. You're up at least a 1-to-1. Your 1-to-2 is going to be more at these highs. And then anything above that is obviously more for the intraday traders that they're looking to take advantage of larger moves. But so far, more like a 1-to-1 with gold, I would say. again, in terms of like actionable trades, right? This has been the most actionable trades in terms of like the ideas that we were talking about, waiting for the exhaustion, waiting for the rejections. If we were going to adapt to the sells, it was going to be after a strong candle closure, which we didn't get that. We just got an initial push. No, not anything like real in terms of like a 30-minute or a 15 or even a 1-hour candle closing below. It was more so like one candle pushed lower. As you can see, clearly failed to do so, aggressively rejected that area. These rejections that came afterwards, excuse me, these made a lot more sense because again, you can see the clear exhaustion, clearly price failing to break lower. You still had these highs to target. You've basically right now reached your overall target in terms of like the scalping opportunities. For intraday traders, I'm assuming they're going to be waiting for the 45.90s to be reached. So that means you need for price to break these highs if you're going to have that chance of price moving higher. So again, not bad. It took definitely the entire session for something to play out. But with the markets, we have no control over this, guys. No reason for us to sit here and try and force ideas. This is something that I'm going to tell you almost every single day. All right, guys? US30 was the one that was, I don't want to say tricky, but aggressive. Right? It was aggressive because of the fact that we had the initial idea was, let's do this one a little bit better. Initial idea was follow the momentum and look for sells only if we can break and close below our area of interest. But because on the macro timeframes, we were bullish on the daily time frame, and this area was an area of interest on the daily, we understood that if we do reject this zone and we don't continue with this momentum, this could be a potential buy zone. But the conditions that we set out were, we want to get the exhaustion first, and then we want to see price push out. And I don't know if you guys remember, but I was basically marking out these highs right here. I basically said, as we're looking at this momentum, watch for price to continue with this lower, or excuse me, with this downside momentum and continue lower if you break these lows and if you don't break above these highs right here. And as you can see, price action broke out of the highs, made new highs, and that was the next area of interest that we marked off because we noticed that price, that's where it exhausted. Off of that area, we understood that if we can break out above this zone, we could see a potential move. We could see a potential move take place towards the upside, or still the same ideas to look for buys here. So it was potential buys here, potential buys here, potential buys here. As you can see, the initial move after NYSE open, it was a fake out of these buys, and then price action aggressively retested this area, which I saw some people were able to take advantage of the aggressive retest. And then afterwards, you saw the continuation and then a slight push higher, I would say, which was this move right here, but no strong continuation. And so far, you did get the rejection, you got the further breakout, which was this breakout right here. That one played out with, again, little to no drawdown whatsoever. That was a clean, again, one attempt failed. The aggressive one was good. This next aggressive trade was good. This aggressive breakout was also good until price action ended up trading back below your zone. So now as you're trading back below your zone, be careful if you cannot reclaim back above here, because if you cannot get back above here, I don't think you'll reach this zone. So that means it's ideal that price gets back above this zone for us to be on the lookout for any sort of buys again on US30. That means that below this zone, since price broke out of this structure and we're retesting it, we can look for further sells down into these lows as long as we're not breaking back above that area of interest. Again, I talk about both scenarios because I understand that some people might be bearish, some people might be bullish, but at the end of the day, your preparation and your analysis is going to fall alongside what I basically just talked about. And let me know if you guys agree on that. I would really like a thumbs up or confirmation. That way I can have that peace of mind that you guys were following along and understanding everything that we were talking about today. Gold getting those breakouts now, starting to stabilize and maintain above this zone of interest. This is now once again still good. That was a beautiful, now you can say that was a very clean move from these lows. Because as price action was rejecting, it was good, but the volume wasn't that strong until finally you got this pop up. Now you got your full 100 pip move right there. Let's see, it was really rough day for me. I lost my capital today. Lost my capital is not it's not ideal. Why is the market so crazy today? On which one? I mean, yeah, I mean, again, sometimes it's easy to speak in hindsight, but I want to see if you guys agree that, I see some people agreeing, that what we were talking about this is, it made sense. Remember, always despite what happens, it always falls down to what we actually did and what we were able to do. Because our analysis might be good. Yeah, sure, we talked about this earlier, but were you able to take a trade? Were you able to follow along with your plan? Or were you waiting for sells? Whatever the case may be, you get to walk away with a lesson for the day. Yeah, I mean, with gold, again, this is now speaking in hindsight, but as we were looking at gold, that's why we were talking about this zone from earlier. We understood that, okay, below that, or excuse me, from this zone, we've gotten price wick into this area and reject. Wick rejection. So that's what we were talking about. If we're going to be creating a wick at this area, which we basically left, we could reject. Not that it's going to reject, but we could reject. So remember, it's about adding or taking away probabilities from your trade. Right now, let's say, although we saw price rejecting and giving us a move towards these highs, I don't think we're completely in the clear for price to just make its way back to the 4600s. You still need for price to get above the 4580s. Close above, let's say in the next 35 minutes, this candle needs to close bullish as where it's sitting right now. If you can do that, okay, yeah, you have more probabilities that price is building support here. You have buyers stepping in at this zone. You could see price make a move higher. But again, as we were watching price, wicks were being left. No candles were really closing below your zone. Like, yes, there was attempts to break out lower and you had a slight breakout, but no strong candle closure for you to continue to validate that idea. Does that make sense? Even on the 5-minute, no strong candles closing below your main zone of interest. So as you're looking out for sells, again, even though they played out shortly and temporarily, when you're looking at the overall how price action is closing, you're seeing exhaustion at this zone. So at that moment, when you're looking for sells, you have to be objective enough to understand that, hey, even though price is attempting to sell off, the exhaustion is clear. You can't even get candles to close below it. So at that point, again, you have to make your decision of what that means for you as a trader. Does that mean that for your sells, you're not looking to take advantage of sells, or are you going to still force the idea? Or are you going to look to adapt to a more buyer bias as you see price rejecting this area? But you got to have a clear plan at the end of the day. And that's where I would assume for the people that were able to take advantage of trades this morning, and which I would say thank you for sharing your trades. From what I've seen, they were able to take advantage of good moves following alongside their plans. And obviously, because our trading is similar, it falls down into like the same zones that we're talking about. So now same thing, be objective about the fact that price is exhausting at this area of interest. So when you look at that area and you're kind of just paused here, that still leaves you in the clear for price to break out at this point either way, because you're creating a range on these lower time frames, and the more you range, the more price becomes a gamble, in my opinion. So it's kind of like, again, at this point, at least in my opinion, because you're getting exhaustion and rejections off of these lows, this still seems like a good buy zone but you now need for price to break and close above this zone for you to have further confluences. So that way, what we're doing at that point, at that moment, is we're removing the possibility for price to sell off and go below this area of interest. Because you would be breaking above this zone, and you know you're back above an area of interest where in the past you've seen price move higher. Even here, you had to bounce off this area, you had to move at least higher. So similar idea. Once we get above here, we could expect at least another move higher. Does that make sense? I think with that, we can call it a session, guys. Let me see. I'll just get through these questions and then I'll go from there. How do you mark your zones? Tales of Imuko. I hope to see your name more often. I haven't seen it before, but we do these streams every day, 8:30 a.m. to about 10 a.m. Today we did it a little bit longer. You guys got me ranting a little bit about my babies, so we got a little bit off topic. So the stream ran a little bit longer, but usually that's around the time that we do it at. So make sure you join and you're gonna see how I mark off my zones. But to give you a quick answer, daily, 4 hour, and then you refine them on the 1 hour, this is what you end up getting. The zones I get from the daily, the 4 hour, and the 1 hour. That's usually what I get it from. These lines that you see, like this line, for example, that's more so a lower time frame zone. So that way you have an understanding of what zones means what. Basically saying these zones have more importance than these. It's just we mark off the lines during the session, because during the session you have a little bit of more precise price action. You're looking at the lower time frames and you're seeing where price is reacting right now, where it was reacting maybe a session before. So you can mark off these lower time frame zones and you can use them to your advantage. But we mainly trade from our main zones. These lower time frame zones are more so used for further confluences. I know some people use these zones to take trades, but I think they fall more on the side of scalping and things like that. What was your rule on candle swings? I remember you saying something about a swing has to happen in order for. I'm not exactly sure I said anything about that. Anything I can't think of right now. What was your rule on candle swings? Edward, I can't think of what you're saying. Oh, I'm always here. I usually don't chat, but the baby chat got me in. Okay. Well, it's good to meet you. I feel like I forget about that. I always kind of assume that the people that are here are the people in the chat. And I forget that there's people that just don't ever chat. That's funny. You just made me realize that. But all right, gold ended up closing bullish on the 30-minute time frame. Again, still giving us good confluences that we definitely have buyers stepping in from these lows. We're now closing back above an area of interest. I would say as we continue to trade above this area of interest, and as long as we're not getting back below that zone, I think we could see another move back up. But so far, this is now up from those lows more than 100 pips, so about 120 pips more or less. Luna, you as well. It's the first time I see you in the chat, so it's good to meet you guys. I work and let's stream in the background. I hope my rants are useful. I feel like a lot of people have told me in the past that that's what they enjoy doing. Believe it or not, people have texted me and told me like, yo, where can I join your podcast? I'm like, podcast? What podcast, bro? What are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, where you do your rants. I'm like, that's crazy, bro. It's a live session, you know? We're supposed to be trading live. But I guess, you know, some people just like to listen to me talk. I don't know. Believe it or not, I've gotten a lot of those in the past. That makes me wonder. I should start a podcast, man. Because I feel like I can talk so much. Especially when I get people involved in the chats. Bro, once I get that chat going, good luck. You know, I'm answering questions. I'm ranting about my past experiences. If I have something to say, I'm gonna say it, man. I did a podcast the other day, but I was talking about myself. I was genuine. I was a little bit cringed out, man. I was like talking about myself and like internally throwing up. I was like, oh my God. I find it cringe to talk about yourself like in that way. I don't know. I'm just weird, guys. Sorry. It's just weird. I feel like some people really enjoy talking about themselves and kind of like boasting. Dude, I get so uncomfortable because in my own head, I think to myself, who cares? So if I think who cares, I'm thinking automatically, bro, people are looking at me and thinking, who the fuck cares? Who are you? You know, like it's just, but it's funny. I don't know. I don't want to say people have come up to me as a fan, but people have recognized me in events before. Just in events. I've never had someone in person like come up to me and be like, yo, you're Tarzan? But at events, people will be like, yo, you're Tarzan? And it's like they'll see, I used to have really long hair. And when I used to go to events, people were like, oh, so you're Tarzan? And I was like, yeah. People, for some reason, always used to think when I was like first trading, I used to trade with Raul. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Lambo Raul, but I used to trade with Raul a lot. And people always thought that when they saw me hanging out with Raul, they thought I was TJR. I'm like, who the fuck? I didn't know who TJR was for a while. I didn't find out about TJR, honestly, until like, bro, way past I would say he peaked in social media. He was pretty, bro. It got to a point where he was everywhere, bro. On like social media, bro, it was TJR everywhere. And people used to always be like, yo, you're not TJR. I'm like, bro, who the fuck is TJR? I don't know. No, I'm not TJR. But then I saw who he was. We had almost the same hair. So I was like, okay, I guess the hair, bro. But other than that, two completely different people, bro. But that was always funny. The calmness in your voice is that I appreciate that. That's a nice compliment. It's what I enjoy doing. I honestly enjoy the trading education space. I honestly hope and wish that I can eventually get rid of I believe I'm a very, I don't want to say shy. Shy sounds feminine. But I believe I'm very like, I don't know, just uncomfortable with the feeling of being known or like people asking about me or just, I don't know. That's why when you mentioned the baby, I was like, wait, how do you know? But then I forget. I forget, you know. If I know you, if like you're in my contact list, I'm gonna spam your phone if we're talking a lot. But if not, bro, I'm like, dude, just not that I don't like people, but I'm just kind of like, bro, I like to mind my business. You know, I've gotten away from a lot of problems in life from just minding my business. And I see people all over the place doing all sorts of things and everyone's business overly involved in everything. And it's like, I don't know. But yeah, I'll have to think about that. Because again, like, every time I think about doing a podcast, I think about like, who cares? Who's gonna actually sit down and listen to me, bro? So because I have that constant doubt in my head, I've never done a podcast. But then I see people with podcasts and I'm like, bro, what the fuck? Like, this guy's talking nonsense. Just, if they could do it, fucking I could do a way better job. But I don't know. It's just some people overthink things, you know? Speaking of things, I was supposed to end the stream, but guys, gold is running. Gold is absolutely running. Manage your risk, manage your trades. That was almost a signal right there. And then US30 got back above the 500s. Another push higher. Not bad. No, yeah, gold is going. Gold has been good. Gold was good this entire time, as you know, as long as you were not breaking those lows. That was a clear, it would have been a clear stop loss to get hit below the lows. It would have been another time to walk away. But luckily today was actually a day that price finally gave some good opportunities. Took some nice trades. That's honestly very, very good to see. The days that I get to rant and take a trade, it's like, bro, we're making money and educating people. I don't know what other people are doing, but again, it was not bad. It was good, but not for me. I mean, hey, man, you get to learn from your mistakes. Were you over trading, over risking, too impatient, whatever the case may be, you get to learn and you get to come back tomorrow and you get to do it better. That's the good thing and bad thing about trading, you know, that it's like, no matter what you do today, tomorrow's gonna come and you have the chance of doing it better. So, but all right, guys, with that being said, I think we've reached full TP almost. This was another take profit area around these highs, just around the 45.90s. Up next is about 100 pips away, the 4600s. So again, for our analysis session, not bad for today. Today, finally, we didn't have to adapt and we finally were able to take advantage of the overall, the main bias, which was to look out for continued buys. Not bad, not bad. This is why you got to be patient with trading. Even for me, I've been waiting all week for a trade like this one. So let that, you know, keep that in mind. The next time you're thinking, I got to take a trade, I'm eager and I'm just, your mind is, it wants to take a trade. Remind yourself what it is that you're doing. Are you even taking a trade that follows your plan? If not, then you're already doing something that's wrong. It's going to be, sometimes it'll be like that. You know, 1-2 days where you can't, 1 or 2 days where you can, sorry about that. 1 or 2 days where you can't take a trade, but when conditions are in your favor, you get to come back, do it good with a clear mind. You're not recovering from losses. You're just doing your job, doing everything good. Nice. Took the opening on US30, closed my laptop and called it a day. Nice. Yeah, US30 gave some nice moves today on the buy side. I would say more so on the buy side. Even these sells, maybe in hindsight, they played out from the highs, but we were more so waiting for the continuations and pushes above the 53,500s. So we got the initial rejections, the breakouts. This is now your continuation. You could say on US30, we hit a home run almost. Because this is just, it was hard to lose, you can say, with US30 today, as long as you were following your plan. Gold a little bit tricky because of the breakout below, but as candles continue to close above, rejections stayed above. These were your continuations. Again, not bad, not bad. But with that being said, guys, great session. Thank you guys for having me this long today. We had, I feel like, a little bit more of a personal talk. You guys got me thinking now though, with the podcast, I don't know, maybe in the future, could start a nice podcast and we could do something with that. You know, that would be nice to have some good conversations about charts, life, money, corruption, all of those things. For me, those are the conspiracies and things like that, or especially like conspiracies with the market, connecting them with the fundamentals. You know, I don't get into those topics because they're like super controversial. But maybe on a podcast, we'll point these things out and hey, we'll just call it out, you know? It's fun. It's fun to point out those things. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for your time. I shall see you guys tomorrow, okay? Tomorrow I'm going to be looking forward to doing our giveaway. So I'll be looking forward to that. All right, guys? Let's see. W session. Yes, thank you, my friend. Yes, it was a great session. Great session, great trades, both on gold and US30. Definitely took a lot longer than usual, but that's why we stayed on a little bit longer today. And we got to know each other a little bit more. So again, thank you guys. And for those of you that were talking for the first time in the chat today, thank you for finally coming out of the viewer side and onto the chat. So it was good meeting you guys. I shall see you guys tomorrow. All right, guys? Take care, everybody.